It's been 30 years, but the NBA All-Star Game is returning to Utah. What's in store? Utah Jazz Ryan Smith, the owner of the team, he answers that question. Hello, everyone. This is Jabari Young, senior writer at Forbes. And in a minute, I will be talking to Jazz owner Ryan Smith about what to expect after 30 years, the All-Star Game coming back to Utah. Chat GPT, Danny Ainge, why he hired Will Hardy, going back into his past, and more. Utah Jazz owner Ryan Smith right now. Let me ask you, right? When I mention the word jam session, what comes to mind? Like, oh, there, I see a smile ready to crack on your face, man, because that's what you're looking forward to the most when the NBA All-Star coming back, the return of jam session in Utah.
I didn't even know that that's what they called it anymore, because they didn't do it as part of the NBA. Maybe the last 9 or 10 All-Star games,
Yeah.
like they haven't done it. And I know why. It's a lot of work, and the situation needs to be right, where it's basically like, I remember as a kid going up to jam session, and it was a carnival. It's like a carnival for basketball. It's a convention, and adjacent to our arena is the convention center in downtown Salt Lake. And I just kept talking to the league, like, more courts, because you come to All-Star and like you feel it, you feel the juice, you feel the vibe. Like, everyone always believes they were like one break or a little, they could be a little taller, they would have grown a little faster, like they could have made something. And I don't care who you are, like, people want the ball. And jam session for me as a kid is like, that's where you could go and shoot and play, and bringing that back. I mean, first of all, the NBA, like, how cool is it that they agreed to do that and like wanted to do it, and watching it really become a thing has been pretty incredible. And it's a lot of work by a lot of people. I mean, we're going to have 60,000 people going through jam session, and it really brings the community together. Like, it really makes this a community event, because not everyone can afford or get tickets to the game.
Yeah. NBA All-Star coming back to Utah. First time in 30 years. So when you said jam session, me being from Philadelphia, I naturally thought about the last time I was in Philly, and they did have a jam session, and I wanted to go, but I couldn't afford it. That's how poor I was. I couldn't afford it at that time. So I'm glad that you're bringing it back, man, because I've heard you say that it's going to be something for everybody out there, and jam session certainly does offer that format. But, again, 30 years, right? That's the last time that game was in Utah. And you being a first-time sports owner now, what does it mean to you to bring that back to the city?
It's a moment. I think that if you look at like the last 6 months, it's been everyone talking about their All-Star memories.
Yeah.
And very rarely can you go into a moment knowing that you're going to be talking about it for a really long time. And so for me, it's one of these pivotal moments. I think it's the first time All-Stars really gone full force since COVID.
Yeah.
I think we're watching the brands activate. We're watching how many people are coming into Utah. There's 30,000 hotel rooms that the NBA has reserved. Like, that's 10x what it was. And I think it's just a chance to show the growth of the league. No one does All-Star the way the NBA does.
Yeah.
Like, there's not. I mean, the NFL does a Super Bowl. We do All-Star, and it's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I've been out to Utah plenty of times before, covering the Spurs and the Portland Trailblazers. You go to Utah, they got the Marriott that's right across the street from the arena, right? I'm sure that thing is already sold out. That's one of the more convenient Marriotts, right?
Well, we've got 2 new hotels that just stood up, like Meridian and the Hyatt just opened. And,
yeah.
There's a lot more coming. There's the one thing you see in Salt Lake City right now is a bunch of cranes.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's a good sign of growth. You see those cranes in Utah. You see them in Austin. You see them in San Antonio. So, growth cities, and Utah certainly one. Let's talk about the stats, right? About 120,000 people that's coming into Salt Lake City for this game. You said it's about a $250 million economic impact. Looking into the numbers, this is quite the event that's going to happen in the city. First things first, listen. Are we going to see some spots that's open past 1 a.m., 12 a.m. at night, or does the rules got to stay?
No, don't believe any of that. Like, it's going to go out. I was just looking at one night. I think there's like 5 primetime concerts going on in one night, whether it's Pitbull, Cactus Jack, and there's a lot going on. Post Malone, like it's gonna it's gonna be the spot.
So Utah gonna be turning up past 1 a.m., man, because usually when you go out there, it's like the curfew is about 12:45, 1 a.m. ish. So it's gonna be turning up past 1 a.m. then.
It will be going.
That's good.
Promise you that. Like we're gonna be alive.
That's good. That's good. What's your favorite part about the All-Star game, man? I mean, listen, the game itself obviously is the highlight. Saturday, the nice festivities. You know, the NBA does a great job at it. But what's your favorite part about it? Being a fan all these years, you know, particularly covering or rooting for the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, I think for me, it's always been just like a moment for your team to shine. Like I remember growing up having all-star presence, having like, you know, the Jazz being represented, you know, I think all the way back from John and Carl to who we've had of late. And then the chance for Lowry and, you know, watching our guys be able to play in the skills competition and Walker Kessler and the Rising Stars. That's kind of what it's always been. I think for a community, there's something for everyone. And I think that's really what it does. I've been to a lot of all-star games over the years. I've been fortunate traveling around, and it's a chance to really see a new city and have them like show it off. And that's exactly what's going to happen here in Utah. Yeah,
well, if you're watching this video, make sure you go to Whiskey Street, okay? That's the spot off Main Street in Utah. I love that spot, okay? They got some great Terry at the wings there. Phenomenal stuff. Utah, a great walkable city. Ryan, let me ask you, you know, listen, the story's out there. You know, you went after the Minnesota Timberwolves, decided you and your wife convinced you that's not the one for us. We're Jazz fans. You ultimately pulled out and you decided to buy the Utah Jazz. And the story goes that you looked up Forbes valuation, saw what it was worth, and then you offered a little bit more than that. So I'm glad we were able to help you out and purchasing the Jazz. But what's the positive, right? The positive surprise that you found about being an owner, especially one, you know, for a major brand like the Utah Jazz in the NBA?
I think, look, we're super fortunate to be in a spot. Like I've grown up in tech, you know, done this a bunch with Forbes, and this is probably the first one I've done when it comes to sports.
Yeah.
But if you think about the journey, I think the positive is really like, probably two things. Number one is like being able to work with your team. And I remember Adam Silver calling me and saying, "Hey, Rye, like people can be a part of the league, and they can be a part if they're really lucky. They could be a part of an ownership group or maybe one of 30 governors, but people don't get their team, like their team they grew up cheering for." And so, and working with the Miller family and being able to kind of try to follow in their footsteps and take the organization on, like that's probably like how special that isn't lost on me and my family and my wife. And like, it's also something that we can do as a family. Like tech sometimes has been something where it's a little bit like, that's what I did, or I was part of that organization, but it's something that we truly all can do. And we can do it with the community. Yeah. And it's amazing where the NBA is and the voice and the positive voice that a team can have in the community, because it's something for the most part that everyone agrees on. So if you look, whether it's politics or religion or college sports, different groups have their own sides. And, you know, especially for a state like Utah, like the Jazz are something that everyone can come together on. And so it really brings us together as a community. And that's challenging. It's exciting, but it's what makes this invigorating.
Yeah, and it's for real. You know, again, covering that team in San Antonio, I got a chance to see that firsthand with those, you know, pro sports teams, you know, specifically those ones with, there's only one. I know there's an MLS team out in Utah, but big pro sports teams like the Jazz, like the Spurs, that's where the congregation is, right? Everybody meets there, and that's where the problems get solved, business leaders and all of that. It's really, really big. And so, again, seeing a new age owner, you know, as it's yourself coming to the league, that's pretty big, right? That's the positive. What's been the biggest negative surprise of being an owner?
I don't know that there's been that much negative.
That's how you could tell you're only 2 years in. You're a new guy. There's going to be some negative stuff.
No, I mean, there could be. Yeah. I mean, I try not to look at that way. I think the league's always on, right? Tech's always on, but the league is always on, and everything's pretty public. I think that can be probably not that exciting at times, because sometimes you want to just solve things the way you would solve things in a normal organization and just make those decisions. But really, that's it. I mean, I think the only negative is like in business, you've got, market share. Here, there's no market share. There's one winner and 29 losers. And that's really how you have to build up to this. And so at times that can be probably, not as positive as maybe being able to have market share where there's 29 teams who are going to be disappointed at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that makes it incredibly competitive, but that's also exciting. That being said, like, I look at this as like, this is what we're supposed to be doing. And we've got a long way to go, and we've got an incredibly bright future here in Utah. And I definitely like where we're headed.
Yeah. Listen, man, I saw you a few months ago in New York, right? And before this call, we were just talking about how great New York is to visit from time to time. And, I live out this way, so to walk around the city and, kind of let go is great. But I see you at the hotel in New York NBA owners meeting, and everybody looks mad coming out. So I don't take no offense to it. Joe Ty's coming out. He looks mad. And then there's you. You walk out. You look mad. Your hat is on forward this time. It ain't backwards. And I'm kind of mad because you ain't wear the backwards hat for me. Everybody else got the interview, got the backwards hat. I ain't get the backwards hat. So I'm kind of mad at that. But you were walking through the lobby, man, and you had this look on your face, and you look mad. And I'm like, I don't want to disturb the brother, so I don't want to go and say anything to him because you look mad coming out. But then as I get a chance to listen to your story, I realize, man, you are the ultimate hustler. I didn't know much about you coming in, but then I see you're the ultimate hustler. I hear it, going from Korea to Mexico to your dad, right? 2 years into building a company, sending you back to get an internship at Ford, to you closing a deal, right? Going to Royal Caribbean, you close the deal with Royal Caribbean on your break at Kinko's to go back home. You said, Dad, we got this. The ultimate hustler, man. And here you are now, years and decades later, owning the Utah Jazz. That is a tremendous journey, man. Sum it all up in one word.
Grateful. And if I had 2 words, it would probably be probably resilient.
Resilient. Yes. It has to be resilient from going from zero, a company to zero, to selling your company for $8 billion. Was that back in 2018 that you sold it then? There were key moments in your journey where you obviously said you quit in your mind a few times. But I look at that journey back in 2011, man. It was in February, right? So it's been a few years now. February, here we are again, where you were offered $500 million. Right? It was that place out called Station One. You were sitting out and you were offered $500 million. And then you got back a few days later, you turned it down because you wanted to go big and you wanted to build the company, and then you did it. You go back to that decision. Was that a key moment for you to turn it down at that point and keep growing Qualtrics?
Yeah, if you unpack that, I was sitting in Station One with Mike Moritz. I mean, this is the guy that gave Steve Jobs his first money. It's the guy that, invested in Larry and Sergey and at Google. And, we had an opportunity to sell the company, which hadn't come along, or keep going. And, I remember him saying, hey, how do you want this to go? This is the perfect equation. I'm either going to back an entrepreneur who wants to fight through the friction and go for it. And it wasn't that we wanted to go big. We just wanted to bet on ourselves, or exit. And no one can blame you for either one. And so I think if I look at our journey, I mean, I'm in my 21st year at Qualtrics, and that's a long time. If you would, especially in tech, when someone can have one idea and your business, your idea can be altered like immensely. And so to be able to be relevant and be able to go through from starting in a basement in college all the way up to IPO, then to sell, and then we IPO'd again, and now we're in another process. Like, if we look at this, like it's like, if you would have told me in 2017 that the next 4 years or 5 years would be this way, it's hard to believe. And then in the middle of it, to be able to have a chance to operate the Jazz and the community that you built, a pretty sizable tech company when people said you couldn't, and you took venture capital money when people said you couldn't, and you created an incredibly diverse workforce when people said you couldn't, I think that there's a message throughout the whole way is like you can dream and you can come up with things. And if you put in the work, and reality is you just don't give up. Because I don't think this journey is something that any moment, if you took a snapshot of where we were at, you would probably equate that to where it's gone. And so I feel like in life, a lot of times we take snapshots, and you got to add all the snapshots up.
Yes.
In order to get a clear picture, not just one, because it doesn't look the way it ends, and where you start's not where you end up. And so that's probably a little bit more of how this process has gone. And I'm a good sleeper at night, and I wake up supercharged in the morning. And like, for me, that's what it is. Like, whatever you're dealing with the night before, I sleep and then wake up in the morning with a new outlook and try to go. But
now, when did that change though? Did it come after the 8 billion? Because I read in 2013, you did an interview at CNN, and you said you were not the best sleeper at night, right? You didn't get enough. You didn't get a lot of it. And now you say, hey, I'm a good sleeper now, right? Is that what $8 billion do to you? You can become a good sleeper now?
No. That's a lie. Like, I think even when I just because I don't get enough sleep doesn't mean I don't sleep well.
Yes, that's true.
I mean, I'm a morning person. I like to wake up early. I mean, we played ball this morning at 6. Like, that's how we go. And I think it's just more of just putting one foot forward. I mean, people say showing up's a lot of it, but we like what we do. We have an incredible team on every front, both at the Jazz and at Qualtrics, but probably more like at home. Like, my wife Ashley's probably responsible for, she is probably like the biggest 3 decisions I've made in business, where I was going to go down a different track, and she kind of taps me on the shoulder going, hey, you got a lot of ideas, but like, you're kind of off on this one. And then, I've got 5 little kids, and that helps put things in perspective and kind of allows you to have a little bit of a North Star onto where you're going and why you're doing things. And I think it's easy in business to kind of lose track of that.
Yeah, you would say that on Valentine's Day, right? That your wife was the one that helped you make the 3 best decisions business-wise. So I guess you're telling me I have to hurry up and get married. That's exactly what you're saying, right? Yeah. I have to go get married.
If it's right.
Absolutely. Switching back to the business of it all, man. You go through your, journey professionally, building a company with you, your brother, your dad, and you get to a point when you sell it. And I'm looking again at all of those traits that you had as an entrepreneur, right? Being resilient, being persistent. You had to convince your dad to go big, right? And then when he took a few months off, and you finally went and did it behind his back, and you sent your friend to go tell him, persistence. And you also had to convince the Miller family to sell to you, right? Persistence, because they said no at first, and you kept going. Persistence. How big is that, and how big will that persistence be as you take this organization, this community asset, and try to get them back to the NBA Finals, where the last time they were there, a guy named Michael Jordan kind of derailed him?
Yeah, no, he it's. I mean, you first of all, I think you have to believe.
Yeah.
Like, you have to believe, like, truly that you can do it, and I think that, and you've got to be fortunate. Like, I think in tech and not only in the rest of life, like, you've got to be a little lucky. And if I look at the Qualtrics journey, like, yeah, we were persistent, we worked hard, we had a great team, but we were also super fortunate, and timing was really, really, really critical to a lot of different things. And I think, with the Miller family, timing was everything. And for whatever reason, we had established a great relationship, and Gail believed that we would keep it in Utah and help build Utah. And there's a lot of timing that has to line up for that. And but you have to be around. You have to be ready in those moments to be able to make something go. And so, look, it's early days. If you look at the organization and where we're at and some of the moves we made and and bringing Danny Ainge in and how we're kind of building the team out, Coach Hardy. It's pretty exciting. I mean, I think we're having a lot of fun, and we're locked in, and it all translates to all-star and everything we're trying to do with the Jazz and the community.
Yeah. And you mentioned Will Hardy, Danny Ainge. Definitely want to ask you about Will Hardy. Got a friend of mine, covered him in San Antonio. And you know where I got a chance to really know Will Hardy at? And when I was, preparing for this interview, I said, damn, me and Will really developed a relationship. And you know where that happened at? In Utah, because he was a summer league coach. And I went out there all the time. And that's when I really got a chance to see him develop and know. So it's good that he's out there. But when you look back at the business side of it, right? You got Will, you got Danny, and you also got Delta back on the building. Yeah. What was the decision behind that? Because when I got notified that y'all were going to be making this big announcement, I'm like, okay, what is it? I didn't think that Delta was going to come back. Why did you decide to go down that route?
So first of all, I grew up going to the Delta Center.
Yes.
I mean, you think of The Last Dance, like that was it. And I think that if you look at a lot of arenas, like it seems like the memories go away when the name changes. And we'd done a bunch of work with Delta on Qualtrics, and I was sitting in the meeting with Ed Bastian, their CEO, and Ed and I have built a pretty fun relationship, and we decided to go to a game in Atlanta, and it was a Jazz game, and it was a couple of years ago, and he told this amazing story that I didn't know, that post 9/11, the whole airline industry was in trouble, and they had had to do some restructuring, and Ed wasn't the CEO, he was the restructuring officer, and had to decide of all the contracts which ones they needed to take a pause on or break in that moment. And every airline was going through this, and the Delta Center was one. And he said, I've never forgotten that. And now that I'm CEO, like if there's ever a chance to like come back at this, like I want to make that right. And you can imagine from my standpoint, growing up with the Delta Center, like, wow, no one ever goes back. Like no one ever goes back. Like, what if we could bring that back? And it was a 2-year process. We were working with our partners that were there, and we had a moment where we were able to do it. And that's probably one of the coolest moments I've had so far, is to be able to bring that back. I just got back from a luncheon with Karl Malone and Frank Layden, and the first things out of their mouths were the Delta Center's back, the Delta Center's back. Like that, it means a lot. And it's the name, but it's also all of those memories for all of us and all the people that were there to be able to do that. And to have it start next year at our 50th anniversary, I mean, you can't make it up.
No.
Like this stuff is like, it's incredible. And so, and it happened in such a nonchalant, organic way of Ed saying, hey, this is big. Now, if you look at it, that was, forever ago when they pulled that out. And now if you fast forward, Delta's made like a $3 billion commitment into the new airport. Like they're expanding. They have 5,000 employees in a time when they didn't know if they were going to be in Salt Lake. Like no airline knew what was going to happen. It's a pretty cool part of the story. And to be able to have that connection now from the airport to the arena, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah. I saw he said that we're never leaving again, right? So the next 30 years when the All-Star Games comes back, it's going to be at the Delta Center, right?
So someone asked him in the media, and before I could even get a question in, because I wasn't going to get into contract details, he threw that out. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, that's good to see, because as you said, it's an iconic arena when you think of the NBA moment. When you look at Will Hardy, what do you see? And we're talking about the Will Hardy from the guy that you hired and you got a chance to know to now, right? Days before the All-Star game. When you look at this head coach, what do you see?
Will's going to be a star in this league. It's his first year as a head coach, and so he's going through everything a head coach you can imagine would go through the first year. But I see someone with incredible presence. I see youth. I see energy. But I also see someone who's wise beyond their years. I mean, you look at who he's been mentored by. If you look at, his path, and you've been around him, and during the interview process, I think there's just the general vibe and how contagious his personality is in the presence. But I also think that, with youth, it's very rare that you get the wisdom that Will has from what he's seen. And that's around Pop, USA Basketball, and just, almost just not having a picture of what everything has to look like, and just being in learning mode constantly. And so it's been awesome with Will. I've been super fortunate. Had Quinn Snyder for 2 years at the end of his run, and then being able to start this with Will and Danny and kind of get this new start. It's been so much fun.
Yeah. Are you kind of using Danny? I shouldn't say using, but also, maybe learning from him on how to be an NBA owner before. Listen, I don't think Danny's going to do this forever, right? But he's kind of like that guide for you entering this world.
I mean, Danny was the guy as I was looking. I mean, if we go back, I used to fly down to Summer League to play golf with Danny and just go and sit next to him at games, just as a friend. And actually, the more I talked with him, the more I became fascinated with like the NBA and the organization and the operations of it. And then to have a person who's been 46 years now in the league as a player, who's played with, or been around maybe 11 first ballot Hall of Famers in a very close way, to coaching and be able to actually offer Will advice. I mean, we just had Jason Kidd here the other day, and Danny and Jason, it's so fun to hear him because Danny was Jason's coach in Phoenix, and then is obviously an 18-year run is a president in Boston. And I think that there was a lot of success that they had in both building an incredibly stable organization, but obviously going all the way and really keeping it in contention the whole way and the topic of conversation. And so that side, and then for me, is someone that I know that he cares for me and Ash, and he knows about us, and he trusts us and we trust him. To be able to have that role sitting next to you, it's another one of those stories like Delta, where it's just like, how does this happen? How did we get here? He didn't think he was going to come here, and he didn't think I'd definitely be in this spot. So we're actually just not thinking about anything but let's just have as much fun as we can and do things the right way. And Danny always tells me the truth. And I love that. I love that, because I think that oftentimes you get in a world where people mince words, or they're a little more hesitant, and to be able to know that he's always going to do the right thing for the organization and the long-term moves. And look, Riley, I think 74 or 75, however old he is. I mean, DA's got a lot of years before that. And I think we're having fun, and we're setting up the organization. He's a CEO, which is a new role in basketball. Normally it's GM, president, and we've tried to just build a good team. And that's what we learned at Qualtrics. That's what we do here. And we just build teams. And I think that team needs to be able to jive and trust each other, but also make quick decisions, and everyone needs to be aligned. And I think it's starting to feel pretty good.
Absolutely. Well, listen, $250 million, again, economic impact that you're expecting for the All-Star game. We've been talking over the last 3 years about how to build Black businesses, right? And I understand in Utah, the demographics may not necessarily shift. It's not a lot of Black people out there, so the demographics say, but there are Black businesses out there. We just said earlier in this conversation how Utah's growing, how you see the cranes in the air. How do you shift some of that to allow those gates, those doors to be open for Black people who may not even be from Utah to come there and maybe set up and maybe grow a Black business? What's the Jazz doing to kind of help that process?
Yeah, we're doing a lot. And I mean, I'll be honest, it started at Qualtrics. When we were, I think 21 years ago, we had to do something that really hadn't been done before. We had to go build a diverse in every way. I mean, there was no women in tech. There was no diversity. We our first 80 employees were folks under the age of 27 who all looked the same And we had to actually go out and recruit globally to build that workforce here. And we did it. We did it. Like we actually came in and built with other companies this Silicon Slopes movement of tech. And we've taken that right into the Jazz. I mean, the first thing we did was we offered a minority scholarship, full ride, everything included, for every win that we had. We have 119 Utah Jazz scholars, and we found people in our community who were first generation college students that we were able to help not only get into school, but I think out of last year's class, we ended up with 30 internships that our sponsors of the Jazz provided. We've got, just this week, you've got pop-up shops that are going on where Black business owners can come and display. We've got a pitch competition where I'm actually on the panel with Ryan Sweeney from Excel Partners, who's one of our minority partners here with the Jazz. I mean, that's one of the top venture capital firms in the world, and people are able to pitch to him. That very rarely, I mean, in tech, we work a lifetime to be able to have that opportunity, and that's coming for our Black-owned businesses. And so it's work like this, but it's definitely a long game, and it's something that we need to do everywhere. Because if we look at everything that we're doing with cancer research, things are very, very, very much skewed, and they're not equitable. And we have a chance to use this platform of the NBA to make these moves. And if I just go back to the Jazz Scholars, the impact we are seeing on our community and the difference that is making, not only in their lives, but the lives of their family, it's incredible. And it's what keeps us going. And I couldn't be more excited for the steps we've taken in 2 years, but we have so far to go.
Yeah. If you had a Black entrepreneur,
All-Star is a great example of that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and for the people who are coming out there, right, a lot of diversity will be coming out there. If you've never been to Utah before, take a chance to just walk around the city in the daytime. Look at the mountains. It's a great atmosphere, right? You have Black entrepreneurs in your face during this weekend, and they ask you, hey, why should I move to Utah? I know what I would tell them, right? I know why there are all the things that are there. But if they ask you, Ryan Smith, the owner of the Utah Jazz, why they should use the Utah in one sentence, how do you sell them on that?
Opportunity. I mean, there's a lot of states that can own a lot of taglines or say that they're representing something. I think if you look at Utah, it is opportunity. I'm a prime example of that. Like, I shouldn't be here, and I am. We are number one. 2021, we were number one for upward mobility. We are one of the lowest unemployment. We are one of the fastest growing. We've got one of the best top 3 tech scenes in the country. Tech is a perfect example of how to speed up your career and be in a job, because the problems you're solving have never been solved before a lot of times. And that's the opportunity that happens here. Our universities are, I mean, I think there's almost 200,000 kids within a 60-mile radius. Like, Utah is opportunity, and it's innovative. This will be the number one most tech-enabled all-star game that has ever existed. Everything's digital, everything's mobile, and we're leading on every single facet with the newest and the latest technology with the NBA. And I mean, to me, like, that's what I want my kids to grow up in. That's what I want it to be. And I'm proof that there's nothing you can't do from Utah.
Yeah. You've been on a media run, man, selling Utah, selling the All-Star game, man. I'm telling you, you got me almost wanting to move out there. I'm almost this close to move out there, man. I'm sorry I'm not coming out there this time. I do NBA All-Stars every other year. And I was in Cleveland last year, and I thought I was going to make it this year, but I'm going to miss it. But it sounds like it's going to be a phenomenal time.
Hey,
you're going to throw the best party, right?
I'm going to see you Thursday morning. Is that what I'm hearing?
You know what? You might, man. I might have to get on a flight and come there right?
Come on. I got you.
I might have to come out there, man. Hey, listen, a couple of quick hitters before I let you out. First is that there is the business side of this, right? The Utah Jazz, the regional sports network. It's a big, issue going on right now. As an NBA owner, You got to get your games distributed. Are you concerned about what you see on the RSN level? You're an innovator. You're a disruptor. You've been down this road before, and it looks like some disruption is ready to come on that route.
Yeah, I mean, we pick up the disruption on one side where it's a positive. I mean, you look at the growth of the game and how it's happening and how we can go global and how many people can watch highlights and watch the games on NBA app or in different countries. That also comes with a negative where we've got an infrastructure set up with the way we consume media that's changing and it's volatile and it's but we've got to find the opportunity in it. Mm-hmm. And that's exciting to me. Like I believe that, especially here in Utah with the fan base we have, like if we just, and this comes from the Qualtrics world, if we just focus on what experience we're trying to provide so that our fans can have the absolute best experience, the revenue will take care of itself. Yeah. And so right now, with the way we're set up locally, we're probably not, if we drew up our best experience, we're probably not providing that because the models haven't changed very much in the last 20 years. Can you be at dinner and watch a game on your phone? Can you do these things? It's sporadic. And I think the challenge is getting in the room with everyone and saying, hey, locally, because I think we're doing a great job on the national side, like locally, how do we carve out something that plays for the next 10 years? And by the way, this isn't just the NBA.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if you look at what's going on with movies, and if you look what's going on with the wars of content and streaming and who in media, you know, who the media personalities are changing. I mean, I'm you know, a captain of the Celebrity All-Star game against Dwayne Wade, and we're going at each other. But if you look at our roster, it's all YouTube influencers, media personality. Mm-hmm. It's a new class. It's a new type. And I think it's a lot of opportunity to grow. So I think we have an opportunity, not only being that fan base or that media company in Utah in surrounding areas, but also having a pretty tech-focused group who's willing to kind of tear down the old to build something new. That's exciting to us. So yeah. It's challenging, but it's also like a massive opportunity. We got to go find the opportunity in it.
Yeah, and there is opportunity in there because, again, we're in this new direct-to-consumer model. But, you know, again, just it needs to be disrupted, right?
I think it already is disrupted.
All right.
Like it's coming. Like it's I mean, and it's not like someone's disrupting it. It's just more of, can you all get together and come up with the new?
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm sure your data tells you, right? Fans locally, every time they email me, they want to watch the game through streaming, and they don't want to have to sign up for cable to do it. They want to just go right to whoever's providing it and get the game and watch it.
Yeah, and part of that's because if you think about the other apps that they're using in their life. I mean, we dealt with this during the pandemic with like when you deal with a food app or a grocery app or an Uber type app, and then you go to your bank. If it didn't look like that, there was no leeway. Like a consumer is like, wait a minute, I've got 5 apps that all look and interact the same and they're easy. And then I get to the bank, it better feel the same way or I'm going to go to a new bank.
Yeah.
And it's a similar way. If people are streaming content on TikTok and Insta and Twitter and then through Apple and Netflix and everything else, and then they come into their sports and it doesn't look like that or feel like that, then it feels weird.
Yeah. And you feel out of place.
It's our job to make that, it's our job to make that not only up to par, but actually go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, listen, are you willing to accept the short-term revenue fall that you might get? Because if RSN, that money is disrupted, you may have to take a little less while that, sector is being, disrupted even more.
I think our big thing is just like the world I come from. Focus on the experience of the consumer and the revenue will take care of itself.
Yeah. You also got a jersey patch, right? 5 for the fight. That's been the official patch on there. But if that, if my memory serves me correctly, 22-23, that deal is up. Do you imagine coming back for 5 for the fight? You said it was a 10-year initiative to raise $50 million. Do you want to do the rest of it to the end of the decade, or do you see a new partner there too?
So I'll just announce it right here while we're going, but like we just crossed the 50 million mark.
Congrats. Congratulations.
Which is pretty incredible for an idea to put a nonprofit on the jersey patch. And so I think we're trying to figure out like ways to work with the Jazz and the NBA to activate, maybe even in a different way, not because maybe we don't want the jersey patch, but much more around like, what's the next phase? What's the next step? I'll give you an example. During the celebrity game, like all the shots that we're shooting and the charity that we're doing, from the 4-point shot and everything else, all of that money is going to fight for cancer research. We're partnered with Howard University.
Beautiful.
To really address the disparity between like how different races are being affected by cancer, and like how to help make it equitable, because there is a massive disparity. And not only that, our main goal is, why aren't the best and the brightest in our country working on research for cancer?
Yeah.
And that's the hard one. So we're funding parking spots at cancer centers for faculty who are going to have breakthroughs. And that's what we're trying to do. And so what started with an idea and a patch has turned into $50 million, all sorts of breakthroughs. We're ready to take that to the next level, and we're open, and we're trying to work with the Jazz to figure out what that is. And to be honest, the broader NBA in the world.
Yeah. Well, you can work with the Jazz. You are the owner. You can do whatever you want. You can say, hey, you're the owner. You can make the decision and do it.
Yeah. So there is a little bit of opportunity there to do stuff in the arena that we probably never would be able to do. And especially when you're doing it in the name of cancer, it's just like, we're doing that. And I think everyone's like, yeah. All right.
I ask my colleagues all the time, hey, I got Ryan Smith. What do we want to ask him? And one of my colleagues, the great Diane Brady, she said, hey, ask him about the Chat GPT and what, sports can offer, whether that's going to be impacted, betting is going to be impacted by. What is Chat GPT going to do for the future of sport?
Well, I think it's all AI, right? I think Chat GPT is just one of them, but like, I'll use the example that I tweeted out this week, like that Microsoft's now embedding it into Word and to PowerPoint, and you start looking at the ability to be able to predict. AI has been powerful. I mean, you look at what Amazon and Google and other folks have had to be able to take what we call unstructured data and be able to do things with it and almost predict or to assist or to help. That's been there. The problem is like there was never really a front door to it. Like no one could ever get in. Like the average user couldn't come in. And so what Chat GPT has done is actually made it so there's a way to interact with it, almost like Siri, where everyone can interact with it. And when that happens, the innovation starts. It's always been there behind the scenes, but now we're bringing that to the forefront. So the question is, what other applications can now use that front door to be able to interact with it or combine it with? And I think from a stats standpoint, from a prediction standpoint, from a history of history's, if history is one of the greatest indicators of the future, like that is super powerful. But it's still early days.
Yeah.
Because it's now becoming broadly consumed.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, listen, man, I thank you so much for this conversation. It's been a privilege. I hope to do it a lot more. So much to talk to you about, so much to learn from you about. Only 2 years in, so I'm sure you'll be back again. But congratulations on all that you're doing out there in Utah. Have fun at the game and sell people on moving out to Salt Lake City. Utah is a phenomenal place, man. It should be a fun time.
It's going to be great. We're super excited, and it's just the beginning. So wish us luck, and I'll see you Thursday morning.
Absolutely, man. I like how you snuck that in there. Ryan Smith, thanks a lot for all the time, my brother. Thank you.
We'll see you.
All right.
Bye.